Today we'll be breaking down the average salary in America by each decade, some savings goals to aim for, and what the top 1% make. I'll also give some practical steps that you can take to make sure you're staying on track with your finances. Starting in your 20s, the average income for 25-year-olds is $53,773, with the median sitting right at $45,000 and the top 1% making $200K. Now, for the sake of this video, we're going to be referencing the median salary for every age group because the average is often getting pulled up by the really high income earners in each decade, and so we'll just stick with median. Now, when you're in your 20s, you're typically going through a lot of life changes, from finishing college to starting your very first career, or even getting married and having a kid by the end of this decade. But regardless, there's a broad spectrum of life choices that you need to make and expenses that come along with it. So with that being said, here are some things to aim for as far as finances go. According to Fidelity, a good savings goal to aim for by the end of your 20s, so right when you're turning 30, is 1 times your salary, and this includes anything saved or invested. So with the median salary in 2024 for 30-year-olds sitting right at $57,000, you're going to want to aim to save and invest at least that much. And here are a couple ways to get there. Number one is an emergency fund. You want to save at least 3 to 6 months of expenses to cover any unexpected events that might come up. I personally prefer more than 6 months because I don't want to risk running out of money should my wife and I lose our jobs for any reason, but generally 3 to 6 months is a really good place to be. Next is paying off any high interest debt. Now, you want to prioritize paying off credit cards or any personal loans with high interest. Really anything that's over 7% is considered high, and I might even add paying off your student loans at this point as well. Now, it may not be feasible to fully pay off your student loans depending on how big they are, but at least getting started is better than not at all. Next is living within your means. You want to avoid lifestyle inflation by keeping your expenses low even as your income rises. Now is not the time to be spending like you're wealthy. Do not buy designer clothes and don't go out and buy a new car, because your 20s are critical years to really get ahead on your wealth building journey, but the best way to sabotage that is by living like you're richer than you are. Fourth is learning financial skills. So you want to be educating yourself on things like budgeting, investing, and financial planning, and there are so many good free resources on the internet to use. Fidelity is a really great one, but if you want to check out things on YouTube, you can look up the Money Guy Show or the Plain Bagel. Both give really solid advice on personal finance and investing. Number 5 is to start investing early by taking advantage of compound interest by contributing to your retirement accounts like your 401k or your Roth IRA. Now, you want to get the match on your 401k as soon as possible because that's free money that can be invested instantly, and at least open a Roth IRA with brokerages like Schwab or Fidelity. Now, a lot of people make this mistake by putting money into their investment accounts, but they don't actually buy investments within them. And so for your Roth IRA, I would recommend some low-cost index funds like VOO, VTI, or SCHG. And for your 401k, find anything related to an S&P 500 fund and something along growth as well. And the reason you want to invest early is because compound interest works the best if it has a really long time to do it. And so for example, if you start investing at age 25 and you're finished at age 70, you can have roughly $1.4 million. But if you start just 10 years later at age 35, you're going to have less than half of that, around $600,000. And so I hope you can see the benefit of starting really early. It's going to pay off in the long run. Moving on to our 30s, the average salary for a 35-year-old is $82,871. The median sits at $61,000 and the top 1% make $400,000. And according to Fidelity, a good savings goal to aim for by the time you're 35 is 2 times your salary. So with the median sitting at $61,000 and the average sitting around $82,000, you'll want to have saved and invested anywhere between $122,000 and $164,000. And as far as ways to get there, number 1, you could start increasing your retirement contribution, and you want to aim for something like 15% into your retirement plans, especially if you have a 401k at your job. In your 20s, the point of contributing up to just the match was to not throw away any free money and to start compound interest. But now that you're in your 30s, you likely have more income at your disposal. Your student loans are probably paid off, or at least a good chunk of them are. And so you could be putting all of that extra cash towards your retirement accounts. Number 2 is diversify your investments. Now, depending on your investing goals and your risk tolerance, it might be good to consider investing in a mix of stocks, bonds, or other assets. And there's no one way to build wealth. And so if you're into real estate, for example, now is a good time to maybe venture into some diversification. Number 3 is saving for your kids' education. This is a great time to start putting away some money for your kids if you haven't started already. Now, there are basically 2 ways that you can approach this. You can choose a 529 college savings plan or a UTMA account, depending on what you think is going to best fit their situation when they turn 18 years old. For example, a 529 has a lot of tax benefits, and as of 2024, you can roll over up to $35,000 into a Roth IRA if your kid turns 18 and they decide that college is not for them. But if you want something a little bit more flexible that doesn't have any rules or tax benefits or advantages to it, you can use a UTMA account, which is essentially an investment account for your kids. kids. Now, I will say the UTMA account has a larger chance of affecting student loans down the road because it's seen as an asset, so just keep that in mind and do your research on which one's going to be best for you. And number 4 is to automate everything. Now, what I mean by that is to automate all of your savings, your investing, any bills or other payments that you might have. Take advantage of direct deposit at your job and split up your paycheck into saving, investments, and all the rest into your checking account. And then from your checking account or your credit card, if you pay it off in full every month, you can usually link those things to your bills so that your wealth building journey is hands-free and off your mind. Moving into our 40s, the average 40-year-old makes $82,812. The median salary is at $60,000 and the top 1% make $400,000. A good savings goal to aim for by the time you're 45 is 4 times your salary. So with the median at $60,000 and the average around $82,000, you'll want anywhere between $240K and $328,000 saved and invested. And some things to consider when you're in your 40s is number 1, to optimize your tax strategies. So you want to use tax advantage accounts to minimize your tax liability and help you boost savings, because at this point you should have a significant amount of money in your Roth IRA and be aiming to maximize your contributions to your 401k as well. The 40s are your peak earning years where you want to aim to put as much money towards retirement as possible, save up for your kids' college, and push to pay off that house. Now is also a good time to refine and adjust your investment portfolio. So you want to be shifting some investments toward more stable assets the closer you get to retirement. So if you started off your 20s, you've had a good 2 decades of investment growth at this point. So now might be a good time to start shifting toward a defensive approach. Now you may not want to go fully defensive, like 100% of your money into bonds, but if you've been fully growth stocks at this point, it might be good to consider switching to something like 80-20 growth and dividends or 80-20 growth and bonds. Number 3 is to start paying off your debts like your mortgage to help reduce your financial burdens. Your house will likely be the last really big debt you have in your life, and so if you're in your 40s and you bought your house in your 20s, you're getting close to that 30-year mortgage time frame, and so it could be really beneficial to push and do whatever you can to pay this thing off. And not only will that bring an incredible amount of peace into your life, but you'll have thousands of dollars extra to put towards savings, retirement, or even fun money if you want to. Number 4 is to continue saving for your kids' education and maybe even increase contributions at this point if they're getting close to 18. And number 5 is to update your estate plans. Now is a great time to hire professionals that can help you do all of your financial planning now that it's starting to get a little bit more complex. Financial advisors, accountants, lawyers, all of these people will be incredibly helpful and worth the money to help you get on track for things that we don't really consider every day, like a will or a trust. Now moving on to our 50s, the average 55-year-old makes $80,705. The median is at $65K and the top 1% make $350,000. A good goal to aim for by the time you're 55 is 7 times your salary. So with the median at $65,000 and the average at $81,000, you'll want anywhere between $455,000 and $567,000 saved and invested. Now, some things to consider and aim for when you're in your 50s is to evaluate your retirement readiness. You want to assess your savings and calculate if you're on track to meet your retirement income goals. Now, this is because at age 55, retirement could be right around the corner or need to be pushed out a bit depending on how far you've come by now. And the good news is you can take advantage of catch-up contributions and things like your 401k and your Roth IRA, and you can use all of that extra money you have now that you have your mortgage paid off. And most likely the kids are done with college and they're out of the house by now, so you should have a good chunk of extra income that you didn't have in your 20s, 30s, and 40s that you can use to help you prepare more as you move into retirement. And that brings us to number 2, which is to plan Social Security timing. You want to decide when to claim Social Security to help maximize the contributions that you're going to be receiving for the rest of your life. Also, because you've been smart and you've been investing this entire time throughout your whole life, you won't need to fully rely on Social Security, which will not be enough anyways, and so take that into consideration when you're making your calculations. Speaking of which, you may want to continue adjusting your investment portfolio away from aggressive investments and move towards more stable choices like fixed income for further diversification. Do not risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. Number 3 is to minimize lifestyle inflation. You want to avoid any unnecessary spending to ensure that your savings are going to last all the way through your retirement. And depending on your situation, you may be looking at the high $100,000s or a few $1,000,000 at this point, but don't let that entice you to start spending carelessly. Remember, you still have a few decades left to live, and the last thing you want to do is spend all your money now right when you're moving towards retirement age. Plus, at this point, I hope that you figured out that money does not equal happiness, and you're going to be far more fulfilled and happy if you're content with your lifestyle as is and just spend time with your family. Speaking of which, you'll want to be around long enough to actually enjoy the golden years of the 60s, and so this is a good time to also start considering your long-term insurance. Specifically, long-term care insurance is something that might be worth looking into at this point because it helps you pay for things like assisted living, nursing home, or even in-home care, which can get really expensive and cost up to 6 figures in the future. Also, be sure that you understand Medicare, or at least have a good idea of how it's going to work and when you're going to sign up for it when you turn 65, because you will need that moving into retirement and as we get older. that's when our medical expenses really skyrocket and you're gonna want insurance on your side. And number 5 is to downsize if necessary. So if you're not in the place that retirement is only 10 years away or less, you can simplify your lifestyle by reducing housing costs or other large expenses. Now that the kids are moved out, the house is paid off, and your retirement accounts are growing faster than you can run these days, you may not need that 4-bedroom house anymore. So this could be a good time to start house shopping for a smaller home, and the good news is your current home will probably cover most, if not all, of the new downsized home. Not to mention, if your grandchildren don't live by, this is a great reason to move closer to them. And finally, for our 60s, the average 65-year-old makes $80,000, the median sits at $55,000, and the top 1% make $230,000. A good savings goal to aim for by the time you're 65 years old is 10 times your salary. So with the median at 55 and the average around 80,000, you'll want anywhere between $550,000 and $800,000 saved and invested. And again, these are just starting points to aim for and recommendations from Fidelity and don'tquityourjob.com. So don't take all these numbers to heart and miss out on the main idea of saving and investing as much as you can as you get older. I don't think $800,000 is nearly enough to retire on in 2025. It's certainly not going to be enough 30 years from now. And so be sure to always consider your personal situation before comparing to how others are living, and maybe even consult a financial planner or an accountant before you make any large financial decisions for your life. That being said, some things to keep in mind as you move towards retirement is to create a withdrawal strategy. So you can use the 4% rule or other methods to withdraw from savings. And this is where your financial advisor can help you plan out a sustainable living situation that can get you into your 80s or 90s if you live that long, which I hope you do. Number 2 is to budget for fixed income. Now this is where you can align your spending with income from social securities, pensions, or other annuities that you might have. And you want to build a budget around these income streams because they're not going to vary that much, and you can rely on them more than your returns from your investment accounts. Also, it might be good to check out ssa.gov/prepare to see how much you're eligible for moving into retirement. Number 3 is to focus on healthcare planning. You want to make sure that you have enough healthcare coverage from Medicare and long-term care insurance for assisted living and in-home care. And you'll want these options covered in case you run into medical issues later down the road. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Number 4 is to simplify your investments. You want to transition to very low risk investments. Remember, this is not the time to be gambling with your money. Dividend funds, bonds, or even high yield savings accounts and money market accounts are much better options than buying volatile assets like penny stocks or even cryptocurrency at this point. And number 5, lastly, I think the most important one is to enjoy your retirement. Plan out your traveling, your hobbies, and other pursuits you might have while you can still maintain financial security. You've worked your entire life to get to this moment, and so many people forget to give themselves purpose to help them enjoy retirement. Stay socially active in your community, find a club to join, spend as much time with family as possible. Now is also a good time to fully commit to a hobby or multiple at this point because you have over 40 hours freed up now that you're not working a job. Try new things, always be learning and growing. Don't be that old guy that stopped growing decades ago. Let your retirement years be the best years of your life and allow you to be a blessing to everybody around you. And to wrap it up, here are just some general tips for all ages. You want to track your progress and review your financial goals on a regular basis so that you can adjust them as needed. Automate everything you can so that you have consistent contributions to your savings and investments. Seek professional advice through financial planners or accountants. And finally, my bonus tip is to track your net worth. Ideally, you do this in a free app like Empower, which I have a link below if you want a free $20 to sign up. But if you don't want to use Empower and you find a better one, go with that too. I really don't care which one you pick. The point is that if you track your net worth, you're going to see your progress over time, and that's really going to push you towards continuing down your financial goals. So if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found that interesting or helpful to see how each decade stacks up financially. Let me know in the comments below how old you are and if you feel like these goals are realistic to meet or not at all. As always, hit like and subscribe for more videos on money and investing. But that's it for today. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.